What feels illegal, but isn't? According to a friend of mine, the first few times you perform surgery, no matter how much training and schooling and certification he went through, he still couldn't help but feel like there was something terribly wrong with the fact that he was allowed to cut into another human being and do stuff to their insides. Banging 18-year-old high school girls. Stepping on my pet's foot by mistake. Driving with a cop behind you. I'm trying my best. Geocaching. It's a pretty straight edge activity that follow every law. The only thing is you look suspicious as hell doing it. Driving your firstborn home from hospital. You don't even have to sign for the child. They just walk you to your car. Check that your car seat is legal, then the rest of your life happens. I never drove so carefully in my life. Driving on your own the first time after you've gotten your license. Free food samples. You mean I can eat several of these tiny cups of food you're selling and then walk away and not buy any of it? Strip clubs. Maybe it's the smoky atmosphere. Maybe it's the big guys who look like they belong in a mafia movie sitting in the back. Maybe it's the amount of titties in my face. Maybe I just don't feel comfortable because I'm a tiny 21-year-old white girl watching other men watch naked women. Driving with 100 miles per hour or more on the German autobahn. Overtaking police vehicles. Feels wrong, but perfectly legal. Going through airport security. Having sex with a girl and meeting her father later that day. Legally you can drive a tank down the road as long as it has rubber tracks and mirrors and it. Passing a cop driving really slow in front of you. Getting a student version of a product that lasts for 4 years when you only have 1 more month as a student. Buying groceries from one store, then going to another store with them. Renting a 28 feet U-Haul truck. How am I qualified to drive this thing? I knew somebody who held a legitimate customer service job that they worked from home. When the call volume dropped drastically, the managers wanted to keep good stats. So rather than send a handful of people off, they required everybody to stand by. They were required to check in every half hour to see if they needed to jump back on. No pay for any of the time they weren't directly taking calls. This lasted like a month, until enough people quit to balance things out. People tried to file complaints, etc. But the consensus was that it wasn't exactly illegal, only greasy. Videotaping police officers. I'm old enough to have used Napster. I keep waiting for the feds to bust me for using Spotify. When radio stations play ads with sound effects that sound like they could be coming from my car. Personally, I feel like it is very distracting, dangerous, and annoying. Yes, technically the radio is coming from my car, but you know what I mean. Edit, wrong word. If you ask my mom, she thinks my excellent TV reception. She has itty 20-year-old TVs on basic cable. I have a 1080 page 46-inch hook to an antenna in my attic and 12 stations that I watch. There are more, but my Spanish is no bueno and I don't buy it off of TV. She keeps referring to how I pirate my television. Returning something for a full refund even though the thing works for the reason of didn't like it. Walking out of a store without buying anything. Cussing in front of my mom. I turn 25 next month. Smoking indoors in countries where it's still legal to smoke indoors. Reproducing sexually. I mean, first it involves sweat and body mashing and genitals. Then 9 months of torture on a woman. Then little humans come out of her V. All without any education on the matter or licensing. Check your local laws, but salvia is the first thing to come to mind. Salvia is a hallucinogenic drug with a short high but is legal in most places. Right turns on red. They just feel wrong. Red means stop. Corporations lobbying politicians. Walking around the grocery store eating food that you're going to pay for on the way out. Refilling your cup at McDonald's just before you leave. Taking out more books from the library when you have overdue fines. Taking pictures of anyone on public area. Jacking off in a public restroom. Driving a 40-ton rig through a snowy pass for the first time. Just looking back in the rear view at all that truck and wondering, How the duck did they decide that it would be okay for me to do this? Getting up to use the bathroom in a college class. Most professors are cool with it, but I just can't. It feels wrong. It's a trap so they can arrest me for interrupting. Sneezing without covering your mouth. When my tenant wants to meet at the Kroger parking lot to pay the $900 rent in cash, we hand it through the windows. Stealing a balloon on Free Balloon Day. Getting pulled over by a cop and not telling him I have a loaded firearm on my person. Disclaimer: some states require you notify. Having sex with animals in Denmark. Having sex with severely mentally handicapped people. Having sex with a 15-year-old when you are 80 yourself in Denmark. Having sex with a severely mentally handicapped 15 years old animal when you are 80 yourself in Denmark. Chasing your bees through someone's property. Streaming movies online free from those sites. Viewing isn't technically illegal. Uploading is. Picking up a chicken mayo for 99p. Getting paid to take a massive dump at work. Driving farm construction equipment on the roads. You don't even have to have a license in most, if not all states. I once drove an off-road dump truck, big yellow cat truck with 6 tires, to McDonald's once for lunch because our survey truck wouldn't start. Also had a motor grader man that would routinely make beer runs in the grader. Stealthily farting in packed public spaces. Former coroner employee here. I had to transport a suspected murder victim for a full autopsy to a coroner's office 100 miles away. Policeman providing the escort told me he would follow me with his lights flashing. The highway was bare and dry and traffic was light. Policeman told me to drive 25 miles over the posted limit when it was safe to do so. It felt very unnerving knowing that I was speeding while being closely pursued by a cruiser with its lights flashing. I got some strange looks as well from people who thought I was being chased instead of doing a special delivery. Jaywalking. In my country, pedestrians have the right to walk across any street except motorways. It's totally legal, no matter what irate cyclists think. Being a black male between 4 feet 7 inches and 6 feet 8 inches. In the United States it feels illegal for a company not to give you breaks, but unless you're in one of the few lucky states it's not. Being an adult and deciding at 9 PM that you're going to have a bowl of sugar encrusted cereal. Something about it seems so wrong, and it'd never fly when you lived with your parents. But as a responsible adult, with your own house and your own paycheck, it's suddenly a-okay. Talking to children to whom I am a stranger. I feel shifty having harmless idle chit-chat in everyday situations. It's ridiculous. Being barefoot in public. To my knowledge, in the US, there is no federal, state, or municipal law or public health code that requires footwear, but it seems a ubiquitous belief that there is. Hiding in a bush and chewing on a Bible. Waiting until you get to work to poop, so you get paid to poop. Taking my newborn home from the hospital. I kept feeling like I should ask for permission from someone first. Leaving the hospital with your first child. They help you strap them into the car seat for that first time and then, holy it, they just let us up and go home with this baby. Marijuana. And yes, I live in one of the growing number of states where recreational is allowed, and the biggest fear you have is if you get caught smoking it in public, it's a $28 fine. If you abuse a man and become pregnant, you can sue him for child support. If you abuse a boy and become pregnant, you can still sue him for child support. Also, you can sabotage your birth control without your partner's consent or knowledge. Walking out of a convenience store without buying anything. You know you have done nothing wrong, but yet you feel you should act normally as not to draw suspicion. Flash banging a baby in a no-knock raid. Apparently. Eating samples then not buying the product. Jacking off twice in a row. Driving without your shoes on. Using my $25 billion to form a super PAC and essentially gain direct control over half of politicians in America.